On December 30th, 1984, in the city of Akron, Ohio, a teenager by the name of Gloria James would give birth to a healthy baby boy that, unbeknown to her, would turn out to change the world of basketball. What's going on, and welcome to From Then to Now. I'm your host, and today I will be telling you about the story of Lebron James, a kid from Akron that would eventually crown himself the king of basketball. LeBron James grew up being raised by his single mother, Gloria James, and as for his father, he was not around due to a terrible criminal record. For the most part of LeBron's childhood, it was tough as he often moved from apartment to apartment. Gloria struggled financially as she found it difficult to find steady work. When LeBron was 9 years old, he'd be sent to go live with the family of Frank Walter, a local youth football coach, because Gloria believed that LeBron deserved to have a more stable living environment. LeBron was coincidentally introduced to the game of basketball by Frank the same year and showed exceptional talent in the sport for a kid his age. In turn, he was signed up to play with an organized basketball league in 5th grade. He later started playing for the AAU, which is also known as the Amateur Athlete Union. In the AAU, LeBron would play for the Northeast Ohio Shooting Stars, where the team enjoyed moderate success on both a local and national level. Fast forwarding to LeBron's freshman year of high school, he decided to attend a private Catholic school by the name of St. Vincent Mary because of a pact that he and his friends had made prior. Of course, in this time, LeBron would play for the varsity basketball team, where he would go on to average an impressive 21 points and 6 rebounds. His team played so well that they would all go on to be undefeated champions, winning the Division III state title, and to this day still hold the local record for the only boys team in Ohio to be undefeated. LeBron's play only got better as his sophomore year showed huge improvement to his production on the court, with his season average being 25 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. He was starting to show that he had star potential, and people started to notice as St. Vincent Mary's would have to hold some of their games at the University of Akron's arena to appease ticket demand, which, may I remind you, held nearly 6,000 people. These fans ranged from alumni to regular fans, as well as some scouts from the NBA and various colleges. LeBron finished his sophomore season with a record of 26-1 and repeated as state champions, and for his astounding play, he was named Ohio's Mr. Basketball and USA Today's All-USA First Team. Before LeBron could start his third year, he was already being featured in a highly acclaimed magazine called Slam, and was also on the cover of Sports Illustrated, becoming the first junior year high school player to do so. LeBron was starting to feel the highlights of success. Later that season, he would go on to average an eye-watering 29 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. By James's senior year, he was traveling the country with his basketball team to play a number of nationally ranked games, including a game on December 12, 2002 against a school named Oak Hill Academy that was nationally televised on ESPN2. This high school was so popular because of James's talent that Time Warner Cable offered pay-per-view games to subscribers to watch the team throughout the season. James would land in some hot water later in his senior year as he would start to receive gifts from his family and friends alike. One of the 2 gifts I'm actually referring to is a gift that he got for his 18th birthday, where he was gifted a brand new H2 Hummer by his mom, who took out loans banked against his future financial success. Because of this, an investigation would be launched by the Ohio High School Athletic Association, and because of its guidelines stated that no amateur may accept any gift valued over $100, it would be determined that James would be cleared of any wrongdoing because he had accepted the vehicle from a family member and not from any agent or any outside source. The second gift that would ultimately land him in hot water would be accepting 2 throwback jerseys worth about $800 from a clothing store in exchange for posing for pictures, which would officially violate OHSAA rules and resulting in him being stripped of his high school sports eligibility. James appealed the ruling, and his penalty was eventually dropped to just a 2-game suspension, allowing him to play the remainder of the year. In his first game back after the suspension, James scored a remarkable season-high 52 points. St. Vincent Mary went on to win the Division II championship, marking their 3rd division title in 4 years. Following the remarkable play throughout James's high school years, it was no surprise that he was already all the talk coming into the 2003-2004 draft. He was projected to be picked first overall, and coincidentally, the Cleveland Cavaliers had secured the first pick due to their not-so-impressive record the year prior. James was ultimately picked first by his hometown team, which was a no-brainer even though he was in a star-studded draft class, with him being up against the likes of Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and Carmelo Anthony, just to name a few. His rookie season would start off with a bang, as he would put up 25 points against the Sacramento Kings in his debut game, and would consistently put up 20 points, dish out about 6 assists, and grab about 5 rebounds throughout the rest of his rookie season. LeBron would play so good that he would win Rookie of the Year, which made him the first ever Cavalier to do so. With James making a strong name for himself in the game of basketball, he was voted into his first NBA All-Star game. In this All-Star game, he would contribute 13 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists. Very solid numbers and an all-around successful win for the Eastern Conference. Teams took note of his rapid development, and then Denver Nuggets coach George Karl told Sports Illustrated, "It's weird talking about a 20-year-old kid being a great player, but he is a great player. He's the exception to almost every rule." On March 20th of his second year, James scored 56 points against the Toronto Raptors, setting Cleveland's new single-game points record. To end the regular season, James averaged better than his rookie year, showing steady improvement. He averaged 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists. Despite playing this well though, he was not able to bring the Cavs to the playoffs. In 2006, and in James's 3rd year playing, he was really starting to take off as he would show his athleticism from game to game and earn himself another spot in the All-Star game, making his 2nd appearance in a row. James would lead the East to victory, scoring an amazing 29 points, and was named the All-Star Game's MVP. At the end of the regular season, he would narrowly miss being named MVP as he finished 2nd in overall behind Steve Nash, but under James's leadership, the Cavaliers qualified for the playoffs for the first time since 1998. This was an exciting time for Cleveland, as they were truly believing that greatness was unfolding right in front of them. In Game 1 of his postseason debut, James recorded a triple-double in a winning effort versus the Washington Wizards. In Game 3 of the series, he made the first game-winning shot of his career, and 2 games later, he would proceed to make another. With LeBron's astounding play mixed with the team effort, Cleveland would go on to defeat the Washington Wizards before ultimately being outed by the Detroit Pistons in Game 7 of the second round. In the next season, they would put up 50 wins for the 2nd consecutive year. The Cavs would enter the playoffs as the East's 2nd seed, and James would finally get his revenge against the Pistons, where in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals, James would notch 48 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists, scoring 29 of Cleveland's last 30 points, including a game-winning layup with 2 seconds left in a double overtime game against them. Unfortunately, LeBron struggled against the tough-as-nails Spurs that featured the likes of Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and Tim Duncan, and as a result of that, they would be swept. Fast forward to 2010, where LeBron would continue on his stride to success, but could not convert his amazing performances into championship rings. James would dive into controversy as he approached his free agency, where he would decide to appear on an hour-long special to announce where he would be going in his free agency period. During this time, James was contacted by several teams, including the Bulls, Los Angeles Clippers, Miami Heat, New York Knicks, New Jersey Nets, and the Cavaliers. With 13.1 million people watching at the time of James's announcement, he would express the following.
In this fall, man, this is very tough. In this fall, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat.
Miami Heat. that was the conclusion you woke up with this morning.
That was the conclusion I woke up with this morning.
This announcement would come as a big shock to Cleveland, as LeBron never expressed any doubt in the team prior. Almost immediately, Cavaliers majority owner Dan Gilbert wrote an open letter to fans published on the Cavs website, denouncing James's decision as selfish, heartless, and cowardly betrayal, while guaranteeing that the Cavs would win an NBA title before the self-declared former king. A sports memorabilia company, Fathead, also lowered the price of wall graphics depicting James from $99 to $17.41. A huge decrease in price, all because they didn't like this decision. Some fans even went as far as burning their LeBron James jerseys, but these actions were seen by many as going too far and felt that James made the right decision to leave that kind of environment. James officially signed with the Heat on July 10, 2010 through a sign-and-trade deal. As a part of the first player-created NBA super team, he became only the third reigning MVP to change teams and the first since Moses Malone in 1982. That evening on July 10th, the Heat would throw a welcome party for their new Big Three at American Airlines Arena, an event that took on a rock concert atmosphere. Through this event, James would allude to the feeling that he had about this team predicting a dynasty for the Heat, and alluded to multiple championships. Outside of Miami, the spectacle was not well received, furthering the negative public perception of James. Throughout the 2010-2011 season, the media and opposing fan bases treated James and the Heat as villains. James's play with the team at the start of the season was rough to say the least, only going 9 for 8 after the first 17 games. James later admitted that the constant negativity surrounding the team made him play with an angrier demeanor compared to the years past. On December 2nd, James faced the Cavaliers in Cleveland for the first time since departing as a free agent, and he go on to score 38 points and led Miami to the win, while being booed every time he touched the ball. The Heat eventually turned their season around and finished as the East second seed, with James averaging 26 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists per game on an impressive 51% shooting percentage. The Heat eventually advanced to the finals, where they would be defeated by Dallas Mavericks in 6 games. James received the blunt end of the criticism for this loss, scoring only 3 points in the fourth quarter of the last game of the series. His final scoring average of 17.8 points per game signified an 8.9 point drop from the regular season, which is the largest point drop-off in league history. In 2011, there would be an NBA blackout, which, if you weren't aware of this, the NBA would cancel the start of the regular season. The main issues dividing players and owners were the division of revenue, the structure of the salary cap, and luxury tax. This would result for a late start of the regular season. The 161-day lockout began on July 1st, 2011 and ended on December 8th, 2011, and it reduced the regular season from 82 games to 66 games. During this time, James received contract offers to play professional football from the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks, and he gave the idea of playing football serious consideration, and even went as far as training with football in mind. When the league returned to play, Miami would begin the year with a franchise-best 18-6 record. The experience inspired James was set to leave behind the villain role that he had been embracing for so long, which helped him regain a sense of joy on the court. He was eventually named MVP for the third time with his remarkable play, leading his team to a playoff run. In the second round of the playoffs, Miami temporarily lost Bosh to an abdominal injury and found themselves trailing to the Indiana Pacers 2-1. To compensate for Bosh's absence, the Heat embraced a small ball lineup, with James at the power forward. Even with this switch in the lineup working well, they still struggled to close out the series, facing elimination in Game 6. James recorded 45 points and 15 rebounds to lead the Heat to victory in what the New York Times called a career-defining performance. Miami won Game 7 to advance to the finals, earning them a matchup with Oklahoma City Thunder and James's budding rival Kevin Durant. In Game 5, he registered a triple-double as Miami defeated Oklahoma City for their second ever championship and James's first ever championship. James was unanimously voted for the NBA Finals Most Valuable Player with averages of 28 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists per game. His full postseason run, in which he averaged 30 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists per game, was later ranked the second best in modern NBA history by ESPN. In the 2012-2013 season, the Heat began with a very impressive 27-game winning streak, which was the third longest winning streak in NBA history. Which, speaking of NBA history, this would be the season that would also mark him being the youngest player in NBA history to score 20,000 points, which is just amazing. LeBron and his team played so well that they would eventually end the season winning 66 games and only losing 16. With no surprise, LeBron is back in his fourth final series. His supporting cast struggled significantly, and his added scoring load prompted him to compare his responsibilities to those of his Cleveland days. But despite this, his team managed to rise to the finals where they would again be matched up with the Spurs. In the finals, it would be a scrappy back and forth series, and it seemed like at points the Heat struggled against the Spurs. At one point, the series was 2-3 in the Spurs' favor, but LeBron and his super team were able to finish the series winning 2 championship rings back-to-back. At this team, the Heat looked unstoppable with the dynasty they've built between Bosh, Wade, and LeBron. Throughout the year, he was one of the few staples for a Heat roster that used as many as 20 different starting lineups due to injuries. LeBron was the anchor for this team that has played astounding for the past 2 years prior. Trekking their way to a three-peat in the second round of the playoffs, James tied a career postseason high by scoring 49 points in Game 4 against the Brooklyn Nets. In the next round, Miami defeated the Pacers to earn their 4th consecutive final berth, becoming one of only 4 teams in NBA history to do so. In Game 1 of the finals, James missed most of the fourth quarter because of leg cramps, unfortunately helping the Spurs take an early series lead. In Game 2, he led the Heat to a series-tying victory with 35 points on a 64% shooting rate. San Antonio eventually eliminated the Heat in 5 games, ending Miami's quest for a three-peat. On June 5th, 2014, James opted out of his contract with the Heat, and on July 1st, he officially became an unrestricted free agent. On July 11th, he revealed to Sports Illustrated that he intended to return to the Cavaliers. In contrast to the decision, his announcement to return to Cleveland was well received and everybody seemed very excited to have the King back on the Cavs. The very next day, on July 12th, he would go on the sign with the team. A month after James's signing, the Cavaliers would acquire Kevin Love from the Minnesota Timberwolves, forming a new star trio along with Kyrie Irving. In January of the 2014-2015 season, James would miss 2 weeks due to left knee and lower back strains, which at the time represented the longest stretch of games in his career to be missed, which is just crazy to think about. In total, he played a career low of 69 games. The Cavaliers would make it to the playoffs with this big three of Love, Irving, and LeBron, and they would fight their way to the finals after defeating the Hawks. For the most part of the finals against Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors, Irving and Love were sidelined due to injury, giving James more offensive responsibilities. Behind his leadership, the Cavaliers opened the series with a 2-1 lead, but he could not keep up with the Warriors, eventually being beat out in 6 games. During the 2015-2016 season, Cleveland finished the year with 57 wins and the best record in the East. In the playoffs, the Cavaliers advanced comfortably to the finals, losing only 2 games en route to a rematch with the Warriors, who were coming off a record-setting 73-win season. To begin the series, Cleveland fell behind 3-1, including 2 blowout losses, but if you're a basketball fan or a fan of LeBron James, you very well may know what happened next. James responded by putting up back-to-back 41-point games in Game 5 and 6, leading the Cavaliers to 2 consecutive wins to wave off elimination. In Game 7, James would post a triple-double and make a number of key plays, including the famous block on Andre Iguodala. Cleveland emerged victorious, winning the city's first professional sports title in 52 years and becoming the first team in NBA history to come back from a 3-1 series deficit in the finals. The 2016-2017 season was stunted by injuries and unexpected losses for the Cavaliers. James later described it as one of his strangest years of his career. Following a January defeat to New Orleans Pelicans, he publicly criticized Cleveland's front office for constructing a team that he felt was too top-heavy, even though he won a championship with the same team a year prior. The Cavaliers would go on to finish the season as the East's second seed. In Game 3 of the first round of the playoffs, James would register 41 points, 13 rebounds, and 12 assists against the Pacers, leading Cleveland to a comeback victory after trailing by 25 points at halftime, representing the largest halftime deficit overcome in NBA playoff history. In Game 5 of the conference finals against the Celtics, James would score 35 points and surpass Michael Jordan as the league's all-time postseason scoring leader. When they advanced to the finals for the third consecutive year against the Warriors, he would have to face Kevin Durant, who the Warriors had previously picked up in the offseason. Behind averages of 33 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists per game, James became the first player to average a triple-double in the finals, but despite this, Cleveland was defeated in 5 games. Prior to the start of the 2017-2018 season, the Cavaliers overhauled their roster by trading Kyrie Irving to the Celtics, who requested a trade in part because he no longer wanted to play with LeBron. After a slow start to the year, Cleveland rebounded by winning 18 of 19 games in December. In January, the Cavaliers had a losing record and James was criticized for his lackluster effort. James would be voted in and win his third NBA All-Star game and snag an MVP award after posting 29 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists, and making several key plays to help Team LeBron win 148-145 over Team Curry. Following another round of trades in February, Cleveland returned to form and James reached a number of historical milestones. On March 30th, he set an NBA record with 867 straight games, scoring double digits. In the playoffs, James guided the Cavaliers to another finals matchup with the Warriors, and in the first game of the finals, James scored a playoff career high of 51 points, but Cleveland was defeated in overtime. Following the defeat, James injured his hand after punching a wall in the locker room, which hindered his effectiveness for the remainder of the series. The Cavaliers would ultimately lose the series in 4 games. On June 29, 2018, James opted out of his contract with the Cavaliers and became an unrestricted free agent. On July 1st, his management company, Clutch Sports, announced that he would sign with the Los Angeles Lakers. The deal was officially completed on July 9th. In an interview with Sports Illustrated, James's agent Rich Paul explained that in 2010, when he went to Miami, it was about championships. In 2014, when he went back to Cleveland, it was about delivering a promise. But in 2018, it was about doing what he wants to do. The reaction to the move was more positive than his original departure from the Cavaliers, albeit still mixed, as some onlookers felt that the Los Angeles Lakers was not his optimal destination. Following his signing, the team rounded out their roster with a controversial collection of playmakers and veterans, including a rookie point guard you may know by the name of Lonzo Ball, but that's a story for another day. To begin the 2018-2019 season, the team struggled to find effective lineups and recorded only 2 wins through their first 7 games. In November, they began a turnaround, which included 2 of James' strongest performances of the season. After blowing out the Warriors on Christmas Day, Los Angeles improved their record to 20-14, but James would suffer a groin injury, which would be the first major injury of his career. He missed a then career high of 17 consecutive games, and the Lakers fell out of playoff contention without him. The team was unable to recover and failed to qualify for the postseason after a 106-111 loss to the Brooklyn Nets on March 22, 2019. Marking the first time that James missed the playoffs since 2005, and the first time he failed to reach the finals since 2010. During the following offseason, the Lakers would hire Frank Vogel as their new head coach and traded the majority of their young core to the Pelicans for superstar big man Anthony Davis. James immediately embraced Los Angeles' much improved roster by transforming his play style, moving to a full-time point guard position and competing with a more consistent defensive effort. Behind James's leadership, the Lakers opened the 2019-2020 season with a 17-2 record, matching the best start in franchise history. On January 25, 2020, James passed team legend Kobe Bryant for third on the all-time regular season scoring list. In early March of the 2019-2020 season, the season would be suspended due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Play resumed in July and concluded in August with the confined NBA bubble, and James ended the regular season as the league leader in assists for the first time in his career, averaging 10 assists per game. The Lakers entered the playoffs as the number 1 seed in the West and advanced to the finals convincingly, with only 3 total losses along the way. In Game 5 of the conference finals against the Nuggets, James helped clinch the conference championship by scoring a game-high 38 points, including 16 just in the fourth quarter. In the finals, James and his teammates found themselves matched up with his former team, the Heat, and quickly took control of the series with a 2-0 lead. In Game 5 against the Heat, James had his best statistical performance of the finals with 40 points, 13 rebounds, and 7 assists in a memorable duel with Miami star player Jimmy Butler, but Los Angeles was ultimately defeated in the 3-point game. The Lakers finally eliminated the Heat in 6 games, which earned James his 4th NBA championship and 4th Finals MVP award. At 35 years and 287 days old, he became the second oldest player in league history to win the award and one of the only players in NBA history to win the award with 3 different franchises. After the shortest offseason in NBA history, LeBron showed no signs of stopping. On December 31st, 2020, James became the first player in NBA history to score 10 or more points in 1,000 consecutive games. In a 109-98 loss to the Nets on February 18th, James became the 3rd player in NBA history with 35,000 career points, joining Hall of Famer Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Karl Malone. And at 36 years and 50 days old, he was the youngest player to reach that milestone. For the 2021-2022 season, James was joined by Carmelo Anthony and Russell Westbrook. In a game against the Pistons on November 21st, James would be ejected in the 3rd quarter after getting into a scuffle with Isaiah Stewart, which would make it the 2nd time in his career that he would be ejected from a game. In his next 16 games after that scuffle, James would average 30 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block on a 54% shooting, also achieving his 100 triple-double while becoming the 3rd player in NBA history to surpass 36,000 career points. During this period, he played 35% of his minutes at the center position. By January 20th, James became the 5th player in NBA history to record at least 30,000 points and 10,000 career rebounds, but he would be the first player to record 30,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, and 9,000 assists. In the same period, he surpassed Oscar Robertson for 4th in all-time free throws made. He would also surpass Alvin Robertson for 10th all-time in career steals. In February, James surpassed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for the most points scored in both the regular season and the playoffs. By March, he passed Karl Malone for 2nd in all-time minutes and regular season scoring lists. In March, James would also record 2 50-point games, which were also his Lakers career high, becoming the oldest player to have multiple 50-point games in a season, as well as the first Lakers player since Kobe Bryant in 2008 to have back-to-back 50-point home games. It was James's 15th 50-point game in his 19-year career, including the postseason. He also recorded his 10,000th career assist, becoming the only player in NBA history to record 30,000 points, 10,000 rebounds, and 10,000 assists. On April 5th, the Lakers were eliminated from both playoff and play-in contention for the first time since 2019. It marked the 4th time in James's career that he would miss the playoffs. In the present day, we are in the ending stages of the 2021-2022 season, and we are actively watching a 37-year-old LeBron James still able to compete at a terrifyingly high level of skill and athleticism. In this current season, he has averaged 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists, which is the highest he has ever averaged in his career, and even though he didn't make it to the playoffs this season, his performance is still impressive. A lot of people have grown up watching LeBron play and witnessed his stride to greatness, and LeBron has shown no signs of slowing down. LeBron has often voiced that he doesn't see himself retiring until he can at least play at least one season with his son Bronny, who is expected to graduate from Sierra Canyon High School in Chatsworth in 2023. From a small kid in Akron to the face of the NBA, LeBron has continued to amaze and has far exceeded all expectations that were set upon him. Many consider him the greatest of all time, but with more of his career left to be discovered, we'll just have to wait and see if that can come to fruition.